Yo, we gonna bust him up, guys?
I told you before, put that
Yo, let's bust him up. Where you running, Jake? Where you going since your fight? Since you lost? What's up, Jake? Where you going, Jake? Oh, he's running! He's running! Look!
Jake Paul just stepped into a nightmare when Anthony Joshua confronted him after he canceled the fight. Yes, the problem child get hit with the full force of Joshua's fury and brutal truth. This was raw, merciless reality, and Jake finally got exposed for running from a real heavyweight.
Actually, nice to get that girl.
What's going on?
What's up?
Jake Paul running, champ. Why is he running? I think because of last time.
Jake Paul was walking out of the building with his usual smirk, and the next Anthony Joshua stepped right into his path with a look that could freeze every camera in the room. Security jumped in instantly, people were shouting, phones were everywhere, and you could feel the tension in the air even through a screen. Yes, we're talking about Jake Paul canceling another fight, but this time, something was different. This wasn't Twitter drama or a press conference meltdown. This was face-to-face. This was physical.
Now, boxing. Anthony Joshua is going to take on the YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul in a professional bout in Miami next month.
But was Jake Paul deluded enough to think it was a good option to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua?
Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, and honestly, it might be the wildest cancellation in Jake Paul's entire career because it showed exactly how fed up Anthony Joshua really was. This didn't look like a heated argument or a small misunderstanding. It looked like a heavyweight champion finally reaching his limit with someone who treated boxing like a marketing tool. People kept asking the same two questions. Why did Anthony Joshua snap like that? And why did Jake Paul run the moment things got real?
If this is a real, legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
The truth behind it didn't take long to spill out, and it had nothing to do with contracts or deadlines or promoters. Jake couldn't hide behind his usual excuses this time. There were no legal complications, no communication issues, and no opponent scandals he could point at. Joshua didn't have any baggage this time, no controversies, no drama. So what was Jake supposed to say? That he suddenly wasn't feeling it? That he need more time? None of that would stick. Not with Joshua, not with the public. The real reason was something Jake has been trying to avoid since the face-off. The size and power difference between him and Anthony Joshua is not a small detail. It's a completely different world. Jake's used to playing in weight classes where he can push the pace, where he has control, where the opponent doesn't tower over him by 5 inches and outweigh him by 40 to 50 pounds. He's walked into plenty of fights thinking he could outwork or outsmart the other guy. But this time, he stood in front of a 2-time unified heavyweight champion with 25 knockouts and 28 wins and realized he wasn't dealing with a storyline. He was dealing with a man who hits like a bulldozer.
Ruiz Ngannou.
Biggest shot I have seen live.
I'm not gonna lie.
People close to Jake's camp said the change in his energy was obvious. One moment he was hyping up the fight, posting clips, talking big. Next he watched Joshua's latest sparring footage and went silent. Joshua had flattened 2 sparring partners in one session. Not tapped them, not rocked. Flattened them, and the clip wasn't edited, wasn't filtered, wasn't slowed down. It was raw power, the type of power that comes from nearly 170 rounds of professional heavyweight experience, more than double Jake's entire fight career.
You've got to be in it to win it, and AJ was in the right place to maximize the opportunity around him, and he has defined a sensational legacy.
For all the rules, the bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, not really. It's better for Anthony Joshua because he's just going to go all out for them 8 3-minute rounds. And imagine that.
Insiders from Jake's team even said his confidence shut off instantly, like something snapped in his head. He went from joking around to questioning everything in a matter of minutes. You could see the panic. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was the quiet kind. The kind that makes someone rethink every decision that led them there. That's why this cancellation felt different. It wasn't part of a strategy or a negotiation. It was pure fear. Jake realized he couldn't spin this fight into something safe. There were no special rules this time. No exhibition label, no weight-friendly conditions. Joshua's weight was capped at 245, but even at that limit, he was still a full heavyweight. The gloves were real, the rounds were real, and Joshua wasn't interested in playing influencer games. That's why Jake had no place to run, no storyline to hide behind.
The contest is a professional bout and will go on the boys' records. But that being said, this is heavyweight boxing. Anything can happen.
He tried to keep things together for a few days, but it didn't last. His team could sense it. He wasn't sleeping right, wasn't training with the same push, wasn't talking with the same bravado. They said it felt like watching a balloon deflate. And when the final moment came, the decision to cancel wasn't dragged out. It wasn't debated. It took less than half an hour. That's how fast his confidence evaporated.
Now we just want to see it because there's a lot of hate out here on influencer boxing. A lot of people have got different opinions on boxing these days. But I want to ask you, do you box?
And that is exactly what triggered Anthony Joshua's reaction. To him, this wasn't just another cancellation. This wasn't harmless drama or some publicity stunt. It felt personal. Joshua spent weeks preparing for a real fight, agreeing to conditions just to make it happen, cutting down weight just to meet Jake halfway, and Jake bailed anyway. To Joshua, it felt like he was being treated like a storyline, like Jake was using his name to boost views, sell hype, then walk away before things got dangerous. That's why Joshua walked out that night with that cold expression. That's why he confronted Jake in front of everyone, not to cause trouble, but to make a statement Jake couldn't twist or avoid. Joshua had been quiet for years, always respectful, always professional, but watching Jake pull the plug the moment he realized the danger flipped a switch in him.
It can happen in a variety of ways, various ways, but I'm not dependent on punch power, you know.
The real story sits in between those moments. The fear that pushed Jake to quit and the frustration that pushed Joshua to finally step forward. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was two completely different worlds colliding, one built on real heavyweight experience and one built on calculated matchups that suddenly went too far.
200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua.
Let's rewind to when you looked at Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul standing next to each other. It wasn't just a size difference. It was a full-blown visual scandal. Joshua looked like a 6'6", 250-pound monument carved out of steel, and Jake looked like someone had dragged a cruiserweight influencer into a heavyweight horror movie without warning him about the plot. Jake kept pretending the gap didn't matter, kept acting as if height, weight, and reach were just decorative features on a boxing profile.
The unimaginable, the unthinkable.
But the moment they faced off, the truth hit harder than any punch ever could. Joshua towered over him like a skyscraper blocking sunlight, and Jake looked so dwarfed, the internet immediately started generating memes before the photographers even put their cameras down, and the reactions were ruthless. People were comparing Jake to a before picture, and Joshua to the after picture of a fitness transformation no human could ever achieve. Even with the weight cap set and the gloves negotiated down to the last ounce, everyone knew Jake was marching into a power mismatch so extreme it should have come with a medical disclaimer. Joshua wasn't just bigger, he was a different category of physics. Jake wasn't outclassed, he was outgunned, outsized, outpowered, and possibly out of his mind for signing the contract in the first place.
A professional heavyweight fight against an elite world champion in his prime. When I beat Anthony Joshua, every doubt will disappear. He's talking to you, Charlamagne.
Okay. But the real comedy began the night before the cancellation, the night Jake Paul's confidence shattered like cheap glass. Hours before the announcement, Jake was reportedly in the gym trying to lock in, which in Jake's language means recording content while half working out. Everything was fine until a new viral photo of Anthony Joshua, looking like he was preparing to punch through the Earth's core, hit Jake's phone, and that was it. Training stopped, talking stopped, eye contact with the mirror even stopped. He just froze, like someone unplugged him. His team tried to hype him up, telling him to stay calm, but apparently Jake started spiraling into a full identity crisis. He began muttering about injury risks, long-term career plans, and whether getting demolished by a heavyweight would ruin his brand longevity. The cherry on top was the emergency late-night meeting with his management, and once Jake decided to pull out, it took him less than 20 minutes, the fastest cancellation of his entire career. Sponsors were confused, trainers were speechless, and fans were furious. Meanwhile, Jake probably lay in bed staring at the ceiling, whispering to himself, "Yeah, I choose survival.
The contest is a professional bout and will go on the boys' records. But that being said, this is heavyweight boxing. Anything can happen.
Anthony Joshua did not choose peace. When AJ heard Jake had bailed, he didn't just roll his eyes and move on. He snapped. This wasn't the calm, polite, media-trained Joshua people were used to. This was a man who felt played, disrespected, and used as a prop in Jake's never-ending quest for content. And AJ didn't hide his anger. He made it painfully clear that real fighters aren't accessories for YouTube storylines.
AJ could wake out his sleep, all right,
Okay.
and put Jake Paul to sleep. And I ain't taking nothing from Jake Paul. I'm just telling you, I respect the fact that Jake Paul is getting in the ring with somebody like Anthony Joshua, but I'm telling you, night.
He reportedly said, "We are not pawns in Jake's content machine," and the tone carried enough voltage to power a small city. For the first time in his career, Joshua personally confronted an opponent after a cancellation, something he has never done, not once, in over a decade of fighting at the highest level. That alone tells you how he disrespected. And when Joshua approached Jake, the energy was suffocating. He wasn't shouting, he didn't need to. His disappointment was louder than any threat. It was the kind of confrontation where one man talks and the other just stands there absorbing existential damage. Jake didn't argue. He didn't chirp back. He didn't even try one of his fake motivational lines. He just looked like someone who realized a heavyweight was close enough to break his soul with one flick of the wrist. And the internet replayed that moment a million times. The confrontation that did more to expose Jake Paul than any punch Joshua could ever land. In the end, Jake didn't just cancel a fight, he triggered a global roast, a heavyweight's fury, and a level of public humiliation even he couldn't spin into content.
Because you have someone that we come from two different sides, like, of the world. We still on the same path to get the same thing.
Jake Paul has been playing the same game for years, and honestly, it's impressive how long he got away with it. Every time a real threat stepped forward, something magically went wrong. The Gervonta Tank Davis cancellation was the perfect example. Jake stood in front of cameras acting heartbroken, talking about Tank's legal issues like he suddenly cared about law, order, and public responsibility.
One of the most feared punchers in the sport of boxing. He's got a 93% knockout percentage. That's one of the best among current world champions.
But everyone inside the industry rolled their eyes so hard they almost saw their brain. Jake wasn't scared of legal drama. He was scared of Tank's speed, turning his face into a highlight reel. Jake trying to avoid Tank was like someone sprinting away from a credit card bill. The problem wasn't the paperwork, it was the consequences. And Tank's speed was the kind of speed that deletes careers, not just beats them.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure they kept paying him.
And if you look further back, the pattern becomes embarrassingly clear. Jake has always softened the difficulty like he was adjusting settings on a video game. Older fighters, retired fighters, and smaller fighters. Jake practically built a career on that. He had an entire easy win formula that kept him safe, relevant, and conveniently undefeated for longer than anyone expected.
He has made a significant impact on the sport of boxing. He has certainly brought new eyes to the sport. He's done so much in uplifting women's boxing.
Jake's matchmaking strategy was basically find me someone famous, but also someone my brother Logan could probably bench press. He avoided prime competition like it was a tax audit, but none of this prepared him for Anthony Joshua, because Joshua refused to play this circus. No exhibition rules, no pillow gloves, no influencer-friendly time limits, no loopholes to hide behind. Joshua wanted a real heavyweight fight, and Jake wanted, well, not that.
So if you can keep fighting fucking 50-something-year-olds.
Because when you stack the fighters side by side, and I mean actually look at the numbers, it becomes painfully clear why Jake panicked. Jake Paul's 12-1 record looks cute until you put it next to Anthony Joshua's 28-4 against actual world champions. Jake boxed 70 rounds. Joshua boxed 167 rounds while fighting men who punch like they're trying to end global warming.
He has knocked out 28 of the 31 opponents he has faced over the last 4 years. He's broken numerous live gates in multiple cities.
Joshua fought Vladimir Klitschko, Usyk, Ruiz, Dubois, absolute monsters with resume longer than Jake's entire YouTube career. And Jake, he fought Woodley, who retired twice during camp, and Nate Diaz, who treated the boxing ring like a place to stretch his legs. Jake's reach was shorter, his weight was lower, his experience was minimal, and his knockout ratio only looks impressive until you compare it to Joshua's artillery level power. This wasn't even a fair matchup. It was a man with a deadly right hand versus a man who thinks boxing is a side hustle. And when the fight was set as an actual 8-round heavyweight bout with real gloves and strict rules, without Jake's usual influencer-friendly safety nets, yeah, it was over before it started. Ends at away from it.
It's a huge risk. You know, it's a huge risk. You can't look away from that.
But the breaking point, the moment things snapped, came when Anthony Joshua finally had enough. AJ isn't the type to scream online or throw tantrums. He's the type to stay quiet until someone pushes the wrong button, and Jake pushed every single one of them. Joshua was tired of the narrative, tired of being used for headlines, tired of Jake manipulating cancellations like he was rebooting a show that nobody asked for. And that's when the confrontation happened. Not a wild brawl, not a WWE circus, just a heavyweight walking straight up to a man who tried to turn him into a storyline accessory. It wasn't what Joshua said, it was how he said it. Calm, cold, disappointed, the kind of disappointment that hits harder than a punch because it exposes the truth. Jake wasn't ready, he never was.
It's two completely different specimens in there. I can't see any version of reality where Jake Paul somehow finds a way to win one round, let alone win the fight.
Jake's body language said everything. He looked like he wanted to teleport out of the room. Meanwhile, Joshua didn't move an inch. He stood there like a final boss, waiting for the player to stop pressing pause. Joshua wasn't trying to attack him physically. He was attacking the myth Jake built. The myth that he was fearless, unstoppable, and always ready for the smoke. And Jake, for the first time, had no comeback, no snappy line, no fake bravado to hide behind. He just stood there absorbing reality in 4K.
December 19th, Miami, Florida.
Jake slipped out the back door with his team shielding him like he was a fragile package marked handle with care. Joshua stayed at the front, calm, grounded, and unbothered. The adult in the room after a child threw a tantrum and ran away. Jake didn't just exit the building, he exited the conversation, the fight, and whatever credibility he had left in the boxing world. And Joshua, he left a message without saying much. If you're going to step into a heavyweight's world, you'd better act as if you belong there. Jake didn't, and everyone saw it. The internet didn't even wait a full minute to react. Jake Paul was roasted before the cancellation announcement even finished loading on people's phones.
And for Joshua, it's pretty simple. He's been out for quite a bit of time. He comes back and does one of the biggest events in the world. And if he knocks out Jake Paul, he will be idolized by many within boxing. It angers people in boxing that we can come in and get as much attention and notoriety as we have as quickly as we have.
Twitter instantly turned Jake into a running joke. People were posting. First, he ran from Tank. Now he's sprinting from AJ. At this point, he needs a treadmill sponsorship. Others compared his courage to a Wi-Fi signal, weak, unstable, and dropping exactly when you need it. Jake wanted to control the narrative, but the narrative shoved him straight into the mud and stomped on him with steel boots. Boxing analysts weren't any kinder. Commentators who usually try to sound polite finally said what they've been holding in for years. This cancellation permanently damaged Jake Paul's credibility. Not temporarily, permanently. Because you can explain away one cancellation, maybe even two. But when you start running from different types of fighters for completely different reasons, people start realizing the pattern isn't a coincidence. It's personality. Fans spelled it out perfectly. Jake only fights when the opponent fits the algorithm. If the opponent is old enough, slow enough, short enough, or beat up enough, Jake is suddenly hungry for a challenge. But the moment the opponent is dangerous in real time, not in theory, Jake's Wi-Fi courage collapses again. Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua was being celebrated like he just saved the sport. People praised him for finally saying what everyone else was too polite to say out loud. Stop treating real fighters like props. Joshua confronted Jake in a way no one ever dared to. Not through interviews, not through tweets, but face to face with that heavyweight disappointment that hits deeper than a punch. And honestly, fans loved it. It felt like the first time someone in boxing actually stood up to the influencer circus instead of entertaining it for a paycheck.
If he's telling the truth, And you know, if he's lying, why didn't he say 2 million? Why didn't he say 3 million?
Right.
Why did he say 1.5? I mean, maybe he's telling the truth.
And now we have to talk about the big question. Is this the end of Jake Paul's dangerous boxer cosplay? His entire "I'm a real fighter" image evaporated the moment a real heavyweight refused to bend for him. The second Joshua stood firm, Jake's persona cracked like cheap glass. Suddenly, all those knockouts and bravado clips looked like props in a scripted series rather than actual boxing accomplishments. So now people are asking, does Jake even want to be a boxer anymore? Or does he only want to play one on YouTube where he controls the lighting, the opponents, and the outcome? Joshua exposed the entire influencer boxing model, the weight manipulation, the opponent selection, the narrative control. It all fell apart under the pressure of one heavyweight who simply refused to play along. And Jake is left cleaning up the pieces of a persona that doesn't hit the same after this. Does Jake crawl back to fighting 48-year-old UFC retirees? Or does he search for safe but famous opponents to remain relevant? Only time will tell.